I've decided to terminate your position effective immediately. My boss's voice sliced through the applause as I stood on stage clutching my innovation award. The golden statue felt suddenly heavy in my hands as 200 employees stopped clapping in unison. My heart crashed against my ribs, while my mind struggled to process what was happening. Beside the CFO sat Valencia, my boss's new hire of 3 months, wearing an expression caught between triumph and pity. I looked across the banquet hall of the Grand Hyatt where we held our annual company gala. Co-workers I'd spent 5 years alongside stared back with expressions ranging from shock to uncomfortable fascination. The weight of public humiliation threatened to crush me, but something deep inside refused to crumble. Instead, I smiled. "Congratulations on your decision." The words left my mouth with a calmness I didn't know I possessed. Before walking off stage, I handed Darian an envelope I'd prepared just in case. When he opened it, his face transformed. The color vanished from his cheeks and his eyes widened with horror. Then he started screaming. Before I continue further with what happened next and why my boss completely lost his composure, I want to thank you for listening to my story. If you're finding it interesting so far, please hit like and subscribe for more real stories of workplace justice. Your support means everything, and I promise this story only gets more intense from here. My name is Farah, and until 3 months ago, I was the lead developer for an assistive technology project that changed everything about my career and my life. People who meet me usually describe me as thoughtful, detail-oriented, and maybe a bit too passionate about my work. What they don't know is that my drive comes from somewhere deeply personal. 9 months before that awards ceremony, our technology firm had secured its largest contract ever, a $14 million deal to develop a groundbreaking communication system for children with severe speech disabilities. The foundation funding the project had selected us over competitors twice our size because of my innovative adaptive interface design. The project wasn't just another career opportunity. My younger brother Liam had been born with a rare neurological condition that severely limited his ability to communicate. For 15 years, I watched him struggle with devices that couldn't adapt to his unique needs. When he was 17, the isolation became too much. I found his goodbye note one Tuesday morning before school. Even that final message had been painstakingly difficult for him to create. I channeled that grief into creating something revolutionary, a system that could truly adapt to each child's specific capabilities, rather than forcing children to adapt to technology. The interface I designed used machine learning to recognize and respond to even the smallest intentional movements, creating communication pathways previous technology couldn't achieve. The early results were stunning. Children who had been deemed unreachable by other systems were suddenly expressing themselves. Parents cried during demonstrations. Our test group expanded from 20 families to over 100, each story more moving than the last. Darian, our department head, initially supported the project wholeheartedly. He showcased our progress at every board meeting and investor presentation. Our stock price climbed, and we were featured in technology publications nationwide. The trouble began when Valencia joined our team. She had an impressive resume, PhD, from Stanford, previous executive position at a major tech company. Darian introduced her as a strategic consultant to help scale our innovation. Something felt wrong from the start, but I couldn't place it. "We need to make this commercially viable," she explained during her first presentation. "The current design is brilliant, but too resource-intensive for mass production." I tried explaining that the adaptive elements were essential to the system's effectiveness. Without them, we'd just be creating another one-size-fits-most solution that would leave behind the children with the most complex needs, exactly the children who needed us most. Valencia smiled with practiced patience. "We can address the edge cases in version 2. That's when I realized they weren't seeing children, they were seeing market segments. Over the following weeks, I was gradually excluded from key development meetings. My access to certain project servers became temporarily restricted due to security updates. When I questioned Darian, he assured me everything was fine. "Trust the process, Farah. We're just streamlining." 2 weeks before the awards ceremony, I noticed one of our test families hadn't submitted their weekly usage data. I called Elena, whose daughter Marina had made remarkable progress with our original system. "We had to stop using it," Elena said, her voice tight with frustration. The update made it impossible for Marina to navigate independently. She's back to using her old picture cards. Update: I hadn't authorized any updates to the test group's software. That night, I used my emergency administrative credentials to access the development server. What I found made me physically ill. They had systematically stripped away the core adaptive features of my design, replacing them with a simplified template-based approach that reduced manufacturing costs by nearly 60%. The modified system would work perfectly for children with common communication patterns, about 70% of users. The rest would struggle or fail entirely with the interface. Children like Marina, children like my brother. The documentation revealed the changes had been approved by both Darion and the board's executive committee. Projected profit margins had increased dramatically, and the timeline to market had been shortened by 8 months. But what made my blood freeze was the marketing plan. They were still using testimonial videos from our original test families, including Marina's, despite knowing the commercial version would no longer serve these same children. I downloaded everything and spent the night building a comprehensive comparison document showing exactly what the changes meant for real children in the program. I included side-by-side videos demonstrating how specific individuals would lose communication abilities with the new design. The annual awards ceremony was 2 days away, and I had been nominated for the Innovation Excellence Award for my original design work. The irony was crushing. I debated confronting Darion privately, but realized he had already chosen his path. Instead, I prepared materials for the board members who hadn't been part of the executive committee decision, particularly those with backgrounds in education and healthcare. The night of the ceremony arrived. I sat through dinner, barely tasting the expensive catering, nodding through conversations I couldn't focus on. When they called my name for the Innovation Award, the applause felt like a cruel joke. I accepted the trophy with a brief, appropriate speech, thanking my team and the families who had trusted us with something so precious. That's when Darion stepped up to the microphone, glass of champagne in hand, and tore my world apart with 11 carefully chosen words. I stood frozen as the crowd's stunned silence pressed in from all sides. Darion's announcement had left me publicly humiliated in front of everyone I'd worked with for years, colleagues who just moments ago had been applauding my accomplishments. The envelope I'd handed him contained 3 key items. First, a detailed technical comparison between my original adaptive design and their stripped-down version, highlighting exactly which children would lose communication abilities. Second, the video testimonials from 5 families whose children would be most affected by the changes. And third, a copy of Section 7.3 from our contract with the Foundation, the Ethical Implementation Clause, requiring that any design modifications must maintain functionality for 100% of the pilot participants. As Darion's screams morphed into incoherent sputtering, board member Winnie Chen rushed to the stage. A former pediatrician before entering the business world, she grabbed the papers from his hands and began scanning them with growing horror. "Is this accurate?" she demanded, looking between Darion and me. "Every word," I replied, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. Valencia hurried forward, attempting damage control. "These are preliminary adjustments only. We were planning to address these issues in later." "The production order has already been placed," I interrupted, "and the marketing materials using testimonials from children who can't use the new system are already being printed." I turned to address the room. "I'm sorry to disrupt tonight's celebration, but I couldn't stay silent. This technology was created to give voices to children who have none. I cannot stand by while those voices are silenced again for the sake of profit margins." Darion finally regained his composure enough to hiss, "Security, please escort Miss Farah from the building. She's just bitter about organizational changes and trying to sabotage this company." 2 security guards moved uncomfortably toward the stage, but Winnie held up her hand. "Nobody move. As a board member, I'm calling an emergency session right now." She turned to the other board members, scattered throughout the room. "Conference room. Immediately." As the executives hurried from the hall, whispers erupted across every table. Darion grabbed my arm as I moved to leave the stage. "You've destroyed everything," he snarled, low enough that only I could hear. 5 years of working together, and you do this? I was going to offer you a generous severance package." I gently removed his hand. "This was never about the money, Darion." "Then what? Some misguided moral crusade? Wake up. This is business." "No," I said, meeting his eyes directly. This is about children who need us to do better. I walked away, leaving him spluttering on stage. As I moved through the crowd, coworkers parted like water. Some avoided eye contact while others whispered quiet support. My closest colleague, Prisha, grabbed my hand as I passed. "The families are still in the demo room next door," she whispered. "They've been watching the live stream of the ceremony. They saw everything." My heart stuttered. The foundation had arranged for several local families from our pilot program to attend a special demonstration tonight, coinciding with the awards ceremony. They were supposed to meet with board members afterward to share their experiences. "You knew?" I asked Prisha. "Not until last week. I found the revised specifications and couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was going to talk to you tomorrow." Her eyes filled with tears. I never imagined Darian would do this so publicly. I squeezed her hand and made my way to the adjacent conference room where 7 families waited with their children. Elena stood near the door, her daughter Marina beside her in a wheelchair adorned with colorful stickers. "Is it true?" Elena asked as I entered. "They were going to change it?" I nodded, suddenly unable to speak past the lump in my throat. Marina reached for the tablet mounted on her wheelchair, the prototype using my original design. Her fingers moved in the unique pattern we'd developed specifically for her motor capabilities. The synthetic voice spoke, "Thank you for fighting for us." That moment broke something inside me. The professional facade I'd maintained throughout the confrontation crumbled. I knelt beside her wheelchair, finally letting tears flow. "I promised it would be your voice, not just any voice," I said. The door burst open as Winnie and 2 other board members entered. Their faces reflected a mixture of anger and determination. "We need to speak with all of you," Winnie addressed the families. "And Farah, the board chair would like you to join us in the main boardroom immediately." The next 3 hours passed in a blur of explanations, technical discussions, and emotional testimonies from parents. The board split into factions, with Winnie leading the charge to preserve the original design. Darian and his supporters argued for a phased approach to implementation, insisting that market considerations needed to balance against individual needs. Near midnight, the board chair finally rendered a decision. Development would revert to my original specifications immediately. A third-party ethics committee would review all project decisions moving forward. Darian would remain in his position, but with oversight from a newly formed accessibility compliance team. It felt like victory, but as I drove home that night, exhaustion replaced adrenaline. I had saved the project, but destroyed my career at the company. No matter what the board decided about Darian's actions, I knew my position there was untenable now. When my phone rang at 6:30 the next morning, I expected it to be HR, with termination paperwork. Instead, it was Josephine Ibarra, the director of the foundation funding our project. "I'd like to meet with you," she said without preamble. "Not at your office. Somewhere neutral." We agreed to meet at a quiet cafe near the waterfront at 9 a.m. When I arrived, Josephine was already seated at a corner table, elegant in a simple blue dress that contrasted with her silver hair. 3 large binders sat on the table before her. "I've been watching you for some time," she said as I sat down. "Long before last night. I don't understand." She opened the top binder, revealing detailed notes about my original design process, complete with annotations in her precise handwriting. "Our foundation has funded 17 different communication technology initiatives over the past decade," she explained. "Do you know how many truly prioritize the hardest to reach children? Not the easiest market segments, but the children that most developers consider edge cases?" I shook my head. "Just yours," she said simply. "When we selected your company, it was specifically because of your approach. I've been concerned about the direction things might take once large-scale production discussions began." She slid the second binder toward me. Inside were detailed reports about previous projects from other companies, projects that had started with promising adaptive designs only to be watered down for commercial release. "What happened last night was unfortunately predictable," Josephine continued. "What wasn't predictable was finding someone willing to risk everything to maintain the integrity of the original vision." She opened the third binder, which contained what appeared to be architectural plans. "Our foundation has been considering establishing an independent research and development lab focused exclusively on adaptive communication technology. No shareholders demanding quarterly profits. No executives cutting corners to meet bonus targets." She looked up at me intently. "We need someone to lead it, who truly understands what's at stake. My heart began pounding as I realized what she was suggesting. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you the chance to build something that can't be compromised, she corrected, with complete creative control and direct accountability to the families we serve. As the implications sank in, my phone buzzed with a text from Prisha. Chaos here. Board in emergency session again. Valencia resigned this morning. Everyone's asking about you. I stared at Prisha's text, then looked back at Josephine, who waited patiently. They're in damage control mode, I said, sliding my phone across the table. Valencia, already resigned. Josephine nodded. Not surprising. People like that always protect themselves first. She tapped the architectural plans. This isn't a spontaneous reaction to last night. We've been planning this initiative for months, watching various projects and teams. You were always our first choice, even before yesterday proved beyond doubt where your priorities lie. What about my team? I asked. There are others who believe in the original vision. Bring them, Josephine said without hesitation. We have funding for 20 positions initially, with expansion planned based on development milestones. My mind raced through possibilities: freedom from corporate constraints, direct collaboration with families, no more compromises on features that mattered most. When would this start? Immediately. The laboratory space is already secured. We can have you operational within 3 weeks. I took a deep breath. I need to think about. My phone rang, interrupting me. The company's main number flashed on screen. You should take that, Josephine said, gathering her binders. I'll give you some privacy. Take my card. Call me by tomorrow morning with your decision. As she walked away, I answered the call. Farah, it's Winnie Chen. The board has been in session since 6 a.m. We need you to come in immediately. I'm not sure that's appropriate given. Darian has been suspended pending investigation, she interrupted. We're implementing a complete review of all project modifications. The foundation is threatening to pull funding unless we demonstrate accountability. We need you to walk us through everything. I arrived at headquarters an hour later. The atmosphere was unlike anything I'd experienced in 5 years with the company. People whispered in clusters, conversations halting when I passed. The executive floor bustled with unusual activity as lawyers and board members hurried between meetings. Winnie met me at the elevator. Thank you for coming. It's been illuminating since last night. She guided me toward the main boardroom. The technical changes were just the beginning. We've discovered financial irregularities as well. Inside the boardroom, 7 board members sat around the massive table alongside the company's general counsel. Documents and laptops covered every available surface. The board chair, an imposing woman named Irena, motioned for me to sit. Miss Farah, we owe you an apology and our gratitude. Your actions, while unconventional, have prevented what could have been a catastrophic ethical breach and potentially saved this company from significant legal liability. I sat quietly, waiting. We've suspended Darian effective immediately, she continued. Initial investigation suggests he received personal incentives from manufacturing partners to reduce production costs. Valencia appears to have been brought in specifically to facilitate these changes while providing technical credibility. What about the project? I asked. That's why you're here. We need your assessment of what's required to return to the original specifications. The Foundation has given us 72 hours to present a remediation plan or they'll terminate the contract. I could feel the weight of expectation from everyone in the room. They wanted me to fix the problem and help them save face. I can provide technical documentation, I said carefully, but I won't be returning to lead the project. Stunned silence followed my statement. That's unfortunate timing, Irena finally responded. We were planning to offer you Darian's position. The compensation package would be substantial. It's not about money, I said, thinking about Josephine's offer. It's about ensuring this type of situation never happens again. We're implementing safeguards until the next quarterly report shows declining profits, I interrupted. I believe in what this technology can do. I've seen children communicate with their parents for the first time. I've watched siblings play together who never could before. These aren't market segments or profit centers. They're children who deserve our absolute best. I shared what I could about the technical requirements, then departed amid their continued attempts to persuade me to stay. Walking through the office for what I knew would be the last time, I stopped at my desk to collect personal items. Prisha appeared beside me. You're leaving, she said, not a question. Yes, taking another offer? I hesitated, then decided honesty was best. The foundation is establishing an independent lab for adaptive communication technology. They've asked me to lead it. Prisha's eyes widened. That sounds perfect for you. She lowered her voice. The atmosphere here has become toxic. Darian's team is blaming everyone else. People are worried about their jobs, and the executives are panicking about stock prices. Would you be interested in coming with me? I asked. The foundation has approved 20 positions initially. Her face brightened. In a heartbeat. Within 2 weeks, I had resigned officially, recruited 7 team members, including Prisha, and accepted Josephine's offer. We moved into a newly renovated laboratory space located near a children's research hospital. The foundation provided state-of-the-art equipment and, more importantly, direct access to families willing to test and provide feedback on our developing systems. My former company scrambled to salvage the project and their reputation. They eventually delivered a compromised version of the technology, better than what Darian had planned but still missing key adaptive features. The foundation maintained the contract but scaled back funding significantly. Darian wasn't fired immediately. Companies like that rarely cut ties cleanly with executives, fearing legal repercussions and negative publicity. Instead, he was quietly reassigned to an advisory role with limited authority before leaving to pursue other opportunities 6 months later. Valencia fared worse. Her reputation suffered irreparable damage when news of her role in modifying assistive technology for children circulated through industry channels. The last I heard, she had left the technology sector entirely. Our independent laboratory thrived. Without shareholder demands driving decisions, we focused solely on effectiveness. The first generation of our communication system, released 18 months after that fateful awards ceremony, served over 12,000 children across the country. We named the core adaptive algorithm Liam, after my brother. The most rewarding moments came from our regular open houses, where families gathered to share experiences and help shape future developments. Marina, now 10, had become one of our most valuable consultants, offering insights that our adult developers frequently missed. During one such event, Elena approached me while Marina demonstrated the latest interface to newcomers. I never told you something, Elena said, watching her daughter. The night of that awards ceremony, when everything happened, Marina was devastated when we first tried that updated version that didn't work for her. She asked me why the people who made her voice decided she didn't deserve it anymore. My throat tightened. I'm so sorry. No, Elena shook her head. That's not why I'm telling you this. I'm telling you because after watching you stand up there and fight for her, for all these kids, she said something I'll never forget. She said, Mom, that's what it looks like when someone truly hears you. 3 years after leaving my former company, we received an unexpected visitor at the lab. Winnie Chen, who had left the board to return to pediatric medicine, came to see our work firsthand. After touring the facility and meeting with several families, she sat with me in my office. I need to tell you something, she said. Your former company is being acquired next month. The communication technology division is being dissolved. I'm sorry to hear that, I replied, genuinely meaning it, despite everything. Don't be. Your departure exposed fundamental issues that were never properly addressed. She looked around at the awards and testimonials lining my office walls. You found your true purpose. They lost their way. She handed me a small package. This arrived at the old office for you. Someone thought I might see you. Inside was my innovation award from that night, the trophy I'd left behind on stage. Attached was a handwritten note. This always belonged to you, Prisha. I placed it on my desk, beside a framed photo of Liam. You know, Winnie said, watching me. Revenge is usually portrayed as this dark, destructive force. But what you did wasn't destruction. You built something better from the ruins of disappointment. That's a different kind of justice. She was right. My revenge hadn't come from exposing Darian's schemes or watching my former company struggle. It came from proving that integrity wasn't a liability, that prioritizing the needs of vulnerable children could create something more powerful than any corporate strategy. Today, 5 years after that awards ceremony, our technology helps over 50,000 children communicate. Each new generation of the system reaches kids previously considered too difficult to accommodate. We've expanded into educational applications and are beginning work on mobility assistance integration. Sometimes I think about what might have happened if I'd simply accepted my termination quietly that night. How many children would have received inadequate technology? How many families would have faced renewed disappointment? The most powerful form of revenge isn't making others suffer for their mistakes. It's creating success that would have been impossible under their limitations. It's building something so meaningful that their short-sighted decisions are proven wrong with every child who finds their voice. My brother Liam never got to use the technology that now bears his name, but thousands of children like him use it every day. When I watch them communicate with their families, sharing jokes, expressing preferences, participating fully in their own lives, I know this is exactly what revenge should look like. Not destruction, but creation. Not punishment, but possibility. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe for more tales of workplace redemption and personal triumph.